everybody. Welcome to our next episode on Afternoon Tea. Here's Niyati Patel and Shawn Bradbury
Hello.
talking about parenting and the conversations around raising our families. Today, we really wanted to talk about owning our voice and how that can matter, affect, influence our being able to support that in our kids and them being their voice and being their person. Before we get started, just a little check-in as to Sean. How do you work with listening to yourself or knowing what you think, what your voice is about different things on an everyday basis?
I really just try to really push everything else out, like try to get everyone else's voice out of my head. Um, and that's hard to do. I've become a lot better at it as far as just kind of when I'm somewhere, like maybe I'm taking a walk in nature or down a trail or something, and I find something to focus on. I think once you find yourself to focus on something, I think then everything just kind of clears up a little bit more. Um, that's been my experience. It hasn't always been my experience. It took me quite a while to get to that level because I always had so much in my head, so many different things going on, all these worries and everything, that it was really hard to kind of disassociate everything and just really focus on being in the moment. I was never really a good person of being in the moment for quite a while. So until I realized the kind of like the significance of that.
I find that interesting too. Like, how do you tease out all the different voices, all the noise, and really figure out what's your own? And yeah, I like to be meditative. I like to do that, and also be in nature. But to focus on something that can really hold that space for me. So in my meditation, that's a non-judgmental, like a very spiritual space where everything gets quiet, and then
Mhm.
you can really arrive somehow to yourself. Same thing with nature is that it's a non-judgmental, wider, more loving space. And so I think for me, it's also important to focus the nature of what that focus would be. If I focus on watching videos or trying to talk to someone, um, it doesn't always work out the same way.
Yeah, you're intaking someone else's creativity too, or someone else's voice, right? You're just taking in more stimulation instead of really just kind of putting the blinders on, if you will, and sitting with yourself. It's putting technology away. It's like taking a walk and shut your phone off or leave it in the car or something, or something that you know listen to what's going on around you. Is it windy day? Is it the leaves? Can you hear the birds? Can you hear like the squirrels in the distance? It's just really getting down granular to what is happening around you, and that to me helps me get out of my head. If you put your focus on something else, it's definitely going to allow you to just to calm everything down and just to be able to have that stillness in you.
And I think that when we can cultivate that stillness inside of us, um, I feel for me it helps me really hear myself, um, understand what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, tease apart the circumstances that I might find myself caught up in. Um, but I can then really hold the space for the children
Mm.
and for the kids because it's like when, say, for example, you need to get your chores done and you, they're just like, no, not now or something. And there are times when they're testing you, but there are other times when they're processing, like they were in the middle of their activity and now this thing has just been thrown at them.
Right.
and they're trying to process it. So I feel like the minute I understand my voice and my space being held, I can then better hold it for them, and there is then a smoother connection. There's not as many bumps, and then I
Right.
feel like they're able to tell me things openly.
Yeah, I mean, because if you meet them with their energy, like they're kind of elevated or whatnot, or I got plans. Okay, I didn't know you had plans. I just found out about them. It's like, okay, I'm just here talking to you. I'm not, you know. So there is something to come in with a sense of calmness when you're working with someone else who might be a little more elevated or who hasn't really doesn't understand how to cultivate the calm because in their world at the moment there's a lot going on. They do have the technology, they do have the relationships, they do have these on and off relationships. Like she likes me today, doesn't like me tomorrow. Now we're best friends again. It's like
Hmm.
there's a lot of balancing to go on there. It's that's a lot going on in their heads, and I was young once too. I know, there's a lot of things that come at you, even more now. So, right. So I give it a little grace because I know where it's coming from. And I also know how, how much more, how worse it has become because of technology and everything else.
Yeah, what you said about relationships. I mean, kids are constantly navigating relationships of their own with each
Yeah.
family member, their friends, and things that interest them. And I feel like they're also navigating relationships in their play, in their in their imagination, and also with nature. Because very often I walk into the park and kids are the little ones. They'll pretty much notice anything on the ground, the bees, the birds,
Yep.
whereas most adults are looking way up high and they really miss out on all the action. And so our kids are also navigating relationships from their perception, from where
Mm.
they are. And yeah, I just wonder then how do we tease apart our own voice and then help them tease apart uh, their voice. I'm taking a bit longer. I want to give one more. I was of the past weekend. I was at an event where the community is standing up for protecting the local meadows and the trees. And there
Right.
was a young girl, 7 or 8. She was there with her mom, and she spoke of the love for the birds. She spoke of how important just her connection to nature. And she's like, how can they take it off? Like, how can you cut the tree? Like, it's just a, like, how can you just do that? Like, it's a very matter of fact statement. And to me, that was so beautiful because I said, that's her voice and it's coming out now. Yes,
Hmm.
there could be influences or things that she's watching, but she's got her own head. She's a very smart kid
Right.
and she's participating in this activity out of choice. You can't bring a 7, 8 year old and have them, just do what you ask them to do.
Right. No, it's very sincere, right? It's very, um, the word's escaping me at the moment, but pure too, I guess. It's
Mm-hmm.
like she hasn't innocent. That's what I'm looking for. It's a very innocent moment of simplistically saying, "Well, if you take the tree down, where the birds are going to go?" Like you're taking their home away. What's up with that, man? It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like it's very simplistic, and a lot of times simplicity works. I mean, we don't have to overcomplicate things. You know, it's true. If the tree's gone, the bird has no home, and then if you want to plant another tree, well, it's going to take a long time to grow that, grow back. And
That's
yeah,
funny you say it takes a long time to grow back the tree because we are that innocence, we are that purity because we were kids once
Yeah.
before, at least once,
Yeah.
and um, and and as we speak now as parents, as adults, as community, trying to look at how can we raise our kids better, we're taking a long time to raise that kid inside of us now. And one of the things that I think about every day is how can we keep that purity, keep that innocence, keep that simplicity, not not rob it, not take it away somehow
Mm.
in the child's growing up. What can we do differently in our world to keep that beauty?
Well, I think, you can always model things. You can always be, in the right activities or in the right environments to do that. But I mean, let's be honest, there's always going to be outside influences, right? That whether it's they go to school or whatever it is, that um, there's really no way to keep that innocence. Unfortunately, that's going to be on them to hopefully keep it. And sometimes if you lose it, can you find it again? Um,
Yes, I feel that we can, one, if we're all working on, a lot of us are working on changing the world as we would like it to see it and to be it,
mhm,
we would change the dynamic. We could probably not waste our time in trying to reclaim something that's already ours and actually use that simplicity, the beauty to dream, to create, to imagine, um, possibilities of a world that that reflects that beauty, that reflects that spontaneity and innocence.
mhm,
Um, um, so I feel like we could probably bring our conversation to a place of contemplative pause as, how can each one of us bring that playfulness, that simplicity for ourselves, because that's what we're um, putting our children into uh, as the world. And how can we then support each other as a community to be that spontaneous, authentic, simple self that brings life and beauty?
yeah, I think a lot has to do with awareness too. Um, Awareness when you are overthinking, okay, know that you need to step away possibly. There's and realize that when things get complicated, that if you take it down to more a simplistic level and break it down to it's simple components, then it's easily understood and digestible and everything else, and everything just seems easier, and it's in a better place to understand what's going on around you and make better decisions from there.
And that just brings me to one more thing. A lot of times as parents, it's like, well, chaos is part of being a parent. Chaos is part of raising a family. But this place of awareness, this place of holding space, is also a reality. And that
Hmm.
the chaos that we are experiencing, that we often take as the norm, is probably just an indication of how much out of connect, out of awareness our not just our immediate world, but like the world around us is putting us into. And that can, instead of taking it as the norm, we can look at it as a wake up call. Like, this is not how I would want my family life to be. In fact, spending time with my family is a
Right.
sacred, precious time, not a time that's torn into so many little pieces, pulling me away, even while
Right.
I'm trying to give all this time.
No, I agree with that. I mean, you got like the chaos on one side and calm on the other, right? I mean, and unfortunately, it seems like we live in a society that for some reason elevates more towards the chaos. It just becomes more of a thing, and we just have to be more aware of that and vigilant of that, and understand ourselves and get back to that creativity and that innocence and all the things that make us who we are.
Things that make us who we are, everyone, your listeners, it's our voice, and we want to bring you in with your thoughts and continuing this conversation as to how can we bring that calm, how can we bring the holding of space of beauty in the everyday moment. So we are making these choices in every little step that can then lead us to a bigger, better world and take those steps into building a nicer world.
Well said.
So thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Yes. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.